So today we want to talk about the thought loop cycle that's keeping you stuck in your limitations, your old patterning. And I want to start out really by sharing a wonderful quote with you by Buckminster Fuller, who says that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. If you want to change something, you've got to build a new model that really makes the existing model obsolete. Your existing reality comes from your past beliefs, your past wounds, and you translate those wounds, you translate those beliefs into your day-to-day reality, into what it is you do. So the first place we have to start, if you want to get out of your stuckness, we've got to start taking a look. We've got to pay attention to our thoughts. We've got to pay attention to what it is we're thinking about. And as the proverb goes, choose what you attend to with wise selection, because it steers your ship in that direction. So if your thoughts are coming from a negative place, from a victim place, from the victim circle, you can only end up in more victim, because that's where you're steering your ship. So there are a few premises that we want to make sure that we understand and that we cover in this. And the first one is that your mindset, thought loops, are just habitual thinking patterns. That's all they are. It's just like any other habit. It's just a thought loop. It's just a habit pattern that your brain has wired up, because now it doesn't have to think about it. So we just run these same thought loop patterns over and over and over again. Breathing is a thought loop pattern. Okay, we don't have to think about breathing. It happens automatically. Okay, so we have all these thought loops that the conscious mind has delegated to the subconscious mind, so that it doesn't have to think about it anymore. It can get on with something else. Trouble is, many of these thought loop patterns are dysfunctional, and that's what we're talking about here. So the next thing to understand is that mindset is in fact a structure. That's why we call it a mindset. It's a structured mindset. It's the way that we currently operate, and structures have integrity. And so therefore, as Albert Einstein says, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. Like I said, if you're trying to solve a problem from a victim mind, all you're going to get is more victim. So we know that definition creates perception, and your perception creates reality. So definition creates perception. If you see something as black, then your perception is that it's black, and therefore you respond as though it's black. And the way we define things creates our perception of those things. So let me give you a practical example. If you define relationships as tough, as challenging, as needing work, then your perception creates reality. Now, your reality is that you're in a relationship that's tough, that needs work. So we get what we focus on, because ultimately, as the yogis say, where your attention goes, your energy flows. So what is your attention on? Is your attention on what you want, or is your attention on what you don't want? And if your attention is mainly on what you don't want, if your focus is on all the things that are going wrong in your life, if the focus is on what you don't have, you can only get more of what you don't have. You have to turn your attention to what it is you do have. So as an example, I was speaking to somebody who went to a conference. He said it was the best conference he's ever attended. But, and as he said, it was a 9 out of 10. And what did he proceed to talk most about? About the one piece that kept it from being a 10 out of 10. And the whole conversation was all about the stuff that was missing, not to make it a 10 out of 10. Well, you know, that's like, I remember years ago I went to see a heart specialist for a checkup, make sure that the ticker was working. And after all the tests, he came back and said, I have a 11.4% chance of having a heart attack, and therefore I need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I said to him, but what about the, really, what about the 88.6% chance that I'm not going to have a heart attack? Why don't we focus on that? And what do I need to do to keep that still going? Right? So what you focus on, where you put your attention, that's where the energy goes. So we want to make sure we focus on what's working. What's working? Focus on what we're doing. Focus on what we like doing. Focus on what we're enjoying, rather than the stuff that we don't like, we don't enjoy. And in order to do this, we have to, as I say, we've got to watch your thoughts, because your thoughts are the seeds that are sprouting in the garden of your reality. The more you think about something, the more it starts to grow. One thought attracts another thought, which attracts another thought, which attracts another thought, and pretty soon you've got a whole bush growing. You've got a whole momentum growing of your thinking. And so this is the premise. The premise is one of self-responsibility. It's your choice what you pay attention to. Do you want to pay attention to what's working, or do you want to pay attention to what's not working? Your choice. Do you want to pay attention to all the negative, or do you want to pay attention to the positive? Your choice. Do you want to find the one piece of the puzzle that's missing, or do you want to look at everything that is actually working? Your choice. I hate my job. I hate my job. When we actually analyze it and look at it, there's a couple of places that, or things we don't like doing, but the rest we enjoy. Why do we focus just on the piece that we don't enjoy? And therefore, what do we create more of? More of not enjoying. So it's your responsibility, self-responsibility, your choice to choose what you pay attention to choose what you focus on. And so we use the Acera process. The first part of Acera is the awareness. Have the awareness. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to what's triggering you. Pay attention to what are you thinking about. Are your thoughts focused on what you want, or your thoughts focused on what you don't want? And the way we do this is we take a look at our behavior, because that's the easiest thing to look at. You know. And by the way, if you can't see behavior, take a look at your results. Because if you don't like the results, take a look at the behavior that's creating the result. Then after that, we can take a look at the emotion. What are the emotions that drove those behaviors? Right? And once we start to understand, okay, this is what I was triggered with. These are the behaviors. This is how I ended up here. But we need to understand the landscape. If it's like I always say, if you want to clear out your garage, you've got to take all the crap out your garage and put it on the driveway, and then sort it out. What I want to keep, what I want to chuck, what I want to get rid of, sell. Okay. At the moment, everything's inside your garage. You can't see the positive. You can't see what's working. You can't see the good. You can't attract abundance. Why? Because your current garage is so cluttered with all the other stuff. So it's your responsibility, your choice to choose what you want to pay attention to. Right now, we want to pay attention to what is our current thought loop. What's our thought loop habit? Say that fast. Thought loop habit. What is it? So in order to do that, we need the awareness. So what is awareness? Well, awareness is a state of being conscious or being mindful of something. It's having knowledge or understanding of our surroundings, of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our actions, of the needs of others, of our triggers. It's just being aware, being attentive, pay attention to what's going on in your mind. Oftentimes we say stuff and we listen to what comes out of our mouth, and that is a reflection of what we're thinking. But if you're paying attention, you can go, oh wow, I can't believe I think that. Our thoughts steer the ship, but our intention sets the course. So if your intention is coming from a place of, I don't have enough, I want more, then all you're going to create is more wanting. Because your intention is to get more wanting. I want more. What's your intention? To get more wanting? No, your intention is to create. Your intention is to create. See the difference between wanting, which is neediness, which is coming from a place of victim, versus creating, which is coming from a completely different place. It's sparking different thoughts, sparking, different ideas, connections. And as I said, thoughts create momentum. So it starts out as just a tiny little thought. And what happens is, as I said, thoughts create momentum. The mind is very powerful, and what happens is the more our thoughts attract other thoughts, it creates an energy all of its own. And when we focus on a thought and we give our attention to it, that energy affects what we say and our results and what we do in response. And once a thought gets enough of our attention, it just gathers its own momentum, which is why we end up feeling bad, sad, gloomy, depressed, whatever, right? That's a function of thoughts we were thinking ages ago. You don't just wake up feeling stressed. If you're stressed, there were lots of little triggers along the way. Fine, and with the triggers came the thoughts, came the tapping into the beliefs. Or actually it works the other way. It's like came the beliefs, came the thoughts. Thoughts gather momentum. Momentum turns those thoughts into emotions. From the emotions we get driven by our behaviors. Our behaviors create results. It's the same cycle over and over again. That's all we're doing is we are really running stories. And we're stuck in that thought loop. We're stuck in a pattern of habitual thought, which affects our behavior and affects our self-talk. And it goes round and round and round in circles. This is, if you read anything about habits, they tell you that there's a cycle which says there's a trigger and then there's a craving that turns into a biological response. And then we get a reward, and so therefore we get triggered again. And we've trained ourselves. You say, well, gee, what's the reward of being stressed? Easy. The reward is your body gets to have all those stress chemicals coursing through its veins. Cortisol, adrenaline, neuroepinephrine. These are highly addictive drugs, and we've got them coursing through our veins. Is it any wonder why we go out and create more stress? We need the hit. We need the hit. So understand we're just running a thought loop. Now this is what the thought loop cycle is. We call it the trigger cycle. So we get triggered. That triggering causes a thought story, which ultimately comes from, if you want to unpack thought story, it comes from a belief which comes as a direct result of one of your core wounds. And from the thought story, we get the emotion or the feeling. That converts into a behavior which creates a result. And that result triggers even more thoughts. And so we go round and round the mulberry bush. And these are the things that trigger us, which is what we call the 5 core cues. Time, location. There's often is a preceding event, or there's an emotional state, or other people. These are triggers that trigger us into this thought loop. Well, when you're sleeping, we're in dreamland or we're at rest, and then we wake up. Why do we suddenly, why do we suddenly get stressed? Because we get triggered. We have a thought. We went to sleep with a triggering thought. We wake up, the alarm clock goes off, and all of a sudden that's a trigger for, right, quick, get up, emergency, we've got things to do. And that creates behavior momentum. And behaviors have a momentum. Our minds, our bodies are great subordinates to beliefs that drive our behaviors. And once we have a pattern of behavior or habits, and once they've been established, those habits, those behaviors directly influence our attitudes and our actions and our words. And habits have their own powerful momentum until we decide to change them. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change our thought loop habit patterns, because ultimately they all stem from one of our 5 core emotional wounds. Being unsure, being unsafe, unloved, unwanted, or unseen. And you know your core wound. It all comes back to that. So if you're feeling stressed at the moment, if you were to unpack it all and go, okay, I'm feeling stressed. Okay, how's that showing up in my results? How's that showing up in my behavior? How's that behavior showing up from my emotions? What, in fact, was I focused on? What have I been looking at? What have I been focused on? What are the thoughts that I've been thinking? What thought stories have been going around and around and around in my head? And those thought stories are coming from what belief? The belief I'm not good enough. And where does that come from? It comes from my core wound, which is I'm unwanted or I'm unseen. And there's the pattern right there. Your job, your responsibility is to do the self-inquiry and pause and look at your movie that you're running. And this is why we have self-inquiry. It's stopping yourself in the middle of your stories. And sometimes in the story, you're way too deep and you can't stop yourself in the story, but you can certainly do it afterwards. As you lie there in bed thinking about the day and thinking how you got yourself all worked up, you can unwind the story. And all you've got to do is just simply follow the recipe. Just go, okay, if you can't figure out the trigger, it doesn't matter. Start with what was the result. The result was I had a fight with my spouse. That was the result. We screamed, we said things we didn't mean to say to each other. That was the result. What was my behavior? Well, my behavior was I was sulking because of how I was feeling. Okay, and what did that behavior look like? Well, I was sulking, I was on the couch just sitting and crying, and then I got up and I just started doing things, started cleaning things around the house and banging doors and banging cupboards closed and shoving things into the dishwasher, and in fact so much so I actually broke a plate. And that was my behavior. Okay, and what was the emotion that you were feeling? The emotion was I was feeling sad, I was feeling stressed. Right? Okay. What was the thought story? What were the thoughts that created that whole story? Well, ultimately, it comes from, my thoughts come from my beliefs. What was I believing about myself? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And so what triggered that? And now we start to understand the pattern. We can start to see the movie. Like I said to a client today, and like I said to a client, at the moment You're being the actor in the movie. What I need you to do is step out of the actor circle and step into the director's circle. Sit on that director's chair and have a look at the movie you've created. But when you're in the movie and you're the actor, you can't see it because you're in it. But as the director, you're looking from the outside in, and you go, okay, there's the triggering event. That was the thought story. The thought story is connected to this belief. And that created this emotion, which triggered this behavior, which triggered the result. And so we went round and round and round. Self-inquiry, self-inquiry. We'll take a look at the steps to self-inquiry in another video. But for right now, all you've got to do is just take a look. Stop, stop, stop. Stop. Just look at your story. Look at your triggering event. Look at your story. Look at your emotions. Look at your... It doesn't matter where you stop them, and it doesn't matter where you catch them. Just catch them. Be attentive. Be aware. Be attentive. Be aware.